Trash. You know what? That might be a little harsh. Semi-trash. Beautifully shot trash. Well acted trash. Fake woke trash. This movie was anticipated for so long to be so disappointing. And I don't want to hear shit about no spiritual sequel. Hi you guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Tara here with another struggle review, here to discuss CandyMan. Not the beautifully cult classic 1992 version. No, I'm talking about this brand spanking new, waited for so long 2021 version. Fun fact, I specifically started a YouTube channel just so I could review this movie because I was so excited. Before I get into why I feel like this movie was so disappointing, why I feel like the message that they were trying so hard to come across did not hit the way it needed to, and why this was clearly a wasted opportunity and they opted for wokeness instead of just a purebred horror film, I need you guys to drop down and subscribe to my channel and like this video. I'm going to give you guys a moment to do that, and then we're going to come back and discuss all things. What the fuck? Now that you guys have hopefully subscribed to see more of me, let's get into this movie. Now, before we jump on Jordan Peele, Nia DaCosta, and the shit show of a film, I just want to spend one moment on the 1992 version of CandyMan. I was so, dead ass. I was so excited for this film. I am a horror buff. I love everything horror. I've always been a fan. I originally intended for this channel to be a full-blown horror channel, but as you can see, stuff went astray. But nevertheless, I love horror films. Nothing walking has ever touched me as hard as this film right here. The movie had so much nuance around it. It was almost like this poetic, touching, spiritual, gothic horror slasher slash. It was such a different mix of things. Not only do we get this black hooked killer, but there's, this unrequited love. There's this, this poetry coming at you, this almost like magnetic feeling coming once he makes his appearance. It's like, it's nothing that I've ever seen. It's so chilling and so bothersome, but so beautiful to look at that you can't look away, and it's intriguing. The story just keeps you guessing. It's just so different. And we hadn't gotten anything like that since, especially in iconic figure like a Tony Todd portraying a slasher. And it wasn't just, a normal slasher. He had, he spoke. First of all, he was, dapper. If you saw him, you wouldn't, think twice to think he was, until you, it was so special, y'all. I'm just not even gonna go there. So for us to get anything now in the realm of that, spiritual sequel, and them take that and bring it into the now, how can you fuck that up? Let's talk about it. So before I get into all the problems I have with this movie, let me first get into the pros and some of the things I did like about this film. There are some there. For starters, there's some beautiful direction here. Nia DaCosta did a wonderful job directing this film. There's great cinematography. The hues of the film, the tint, the color, all the black people all look illuminated. The color palette, everything was nice there. Most of our main cast are Yahya Abdul-Mateen, Teyonah Parris, Colman Domingo. Everybody here did a pretty good job acting-wise. Now, there is many scenes where we get a flash forward or a flashback, and they use puppetry. and it is quite amazing. It's something I've never seen before, and I like what it had to bring here, especially towards the end of the film. And I also liked all the callbacks to the original film. We get certain shots, certain scenes, you know, Anthony running around investigating, kind of like Helen in the first film. All of that was great. And of course, we still have some of that Philip Glass score from the first film that kind of ties everything all together. Black man, we are immediately hit with the main vocal point of this film as soon as it comes on. Now, we are still set in our Cabrini Green projects. It is 1977, but we immediately get into, you know, being racially profiled, police brutality, this man being set up. You know, we bring back a callback to, you know, the razors and the candy from the 1992 film, you know, Sweets for the Sweet. But here, it's like some creep that's just stepping, and you know, that was used as a callback also, stepping out of the wall and he's just offering candy, all types of creep factor. But it's just made for us to understand that, you know, he was, you know, maybe not all mentally there. He just like giving out candy. Bottom line, it wasn't his fault. He was, you know, attacked, beat to a pulp, this, that, and the third, when in actuality, he did it. This was yet another injustice done to a black man, as it's done, you know, all around the world. And, you know, we make up these tales and these things here to deal with them and blah, blah, blah. That was so heavy-handed here. Like, for that to be the main vocal point of the film, it made this a completely different movie. And I expected that. I didn't expect this to be part 2 of that first film. I knew it wouldn't be from the trailer, but I also didn't think it would be that. We are immediately made to feel some type of way and have a racial divide as soon as this film comes on that sets it up for white people bad, black people good. Like, I would have never expected to get that here. Even, you know, in the beginning when we have that wonderful narration from our, you know, Colman Domingo's character, William, he gives me, you know, that good Keith David, deep, kind of raspy, really good voice. And when we're, you know, describing what happened, even for the police to be outside of that 1977 Cabrini Green, you know, oh, a white girl got some candy with some razors in it, and the white policemen, you know, were searching for this man. And there was so much of that here. And I don't know why I'm surprised, because I remember watching the 1992 film. I used to always go like, what sense did it make for that injustice to be done to him and him come back and, you know, pretty much kill black people? I just never got that. But here, not only do we not get him just coming back to kill black people or just to kill people in general, we are coming back for white people completely. Okay. There's almost not one white character here throughout this whole film that isn't saying something that has a racial undertone in it, that, you know, isn't seen as, you know, some sort of bad. And I just don't feel like we had to make them that to get our point across in this film. And it really took me out of it, especially when we get to the death scenes. Let's talk about the death scenes. That good slasher that we go to horror films for. The carnage, the blood, the guts, none of it here. There's absolutely none of that here. I don't understand having a rated R film for some CandyMan is a slasher. All deaths are done off screen. All of them. All of them. Like, I can remember watching that 1992, and you get to see that hook, and it's just it's like the blood almost like spewed on you through the screen. Not here. Not here. This is almost not a horror film. It's a film, but horror, this is a film that wanted to make a statement, and being a horror wasn't one of them. The main focus here is, you know, injustice done against Black people and what the CandyMan figure represents in the Black community as far as that is concerned. Horror, this is not. A lot of stuff is CGI'd in, kind of cheaply done, really underwhelming. A lot of cutaway scenes, a lot of scenes where you feel like there's some intense buildup and something's about to happen, and it just doesn't. Nothing here pulls you in to this being a horror. This is not a horror film. Why? Now, unlike our original film, we have multiple CandyMan here. It's more so a figure to represent, you know, injustices done to Black men over time. Every time one of these things happen, you know, unfairly, torture, murder, fires, hanging, this turns, you know, some man into this. Now, with our Sherman Fields character being our main CandyMan-esque figure, translating here prior to the ending of the film, unlike the gut punch of that first original film, where we see, you know, the CandyMan probably about the 45 almost hour mark, and there's so much allure, so much buildup, just so much surrounding the character that when we finally see him call Helen's name in that parking garage structure, it sends chills down your spine. You are into it. And when we see him, he makes such a strong impact and the slasher begins. Here, we get so much of Sherman Fields' character, all the way from the beginning to the end of the film. He is seen so much, and they're doing this thing here, you know, this tricky reflection-esque thing where we see the murders kind of happening, you know, the little bit we do see that's not done off screen, and you don't actually see him, you see his reflection, and he plays, you know, intertwining with our Anthony McCoy, Yahya's character. Doesn't really do much for me. We don't have a strong scare factor there because we see him so often. It's very well lit. You see, you know, all the scarring and the bruising, you know, in his face, and you see, you know, the figure, but the presence just isn't there for me. So when you see him looming or appearing or, you know, murdering someone, it just doesn't hit. It's just really goes unnoticed and adds nothing here besides, you know, him showing up awkwardly, smirking, or murdering someone off screen, and not really giving us those really great jump scares that we got in that first film that we love the slasher for so much. It was dry. Now, we also talk about gentrification all up and through this film, which is okay. That's a big issue for today. But you don't really see it within the neighborhood. Like, if we're going to talk about gentrification and the neighborhood changing, we need a little bit more than a flashback from, you know, the really, really Black ghetto of 1977 Cabrini Green, and then jump to the 2019 luxury apartment gentrified Cabrini Green. Like, I don't know exactly what the budget was for this film, and I really don't care because it just seemed like they were short and we had, I don't know, 5 locations. Everything seemed really reduced. I didn't feel like we traveled really far. Our main protagonist, Anthony McCoy, is, you know, living in the Cabrini Green with his girlfriend, and then everything that he needs to, you know, venture to is pretty much in walking distance. It just didn't really give me, I didn't really feel the neighborhood. I didn't get much. Their doorstep practically is, you know, her art gallery, or this laundromat that we keep frequenting, or the, you know, part of the projects that hasn't, you know, quite been gentrified yet. Everything just seemed really close. And I was like, they're not gonna get in the car and go nowhere? We just gonna stay here. We're not gonna see any of these gentrified people, none of the community. We just gonna see these white people. Okay. Now, with Yahya Abdul and Teyonah Parris really being our strong leads here, their performances were great, but the writing here was so bad, and the storyline that we were given to follow really made their performances lack. Like, it lessened everything here for me. There just wasn't much to go off of. getting into Yahya Abdul as Anthony McCoy, you know, who, of course, if you watched the previous movie, you know that he is the baby from the previous film. So I didn't really get this being a spiritual sequel. I didn't get that from this. You know, when I think spiritual sequel, I think, you know, us taking little, like, no, we took a lot from that first film. Not only do we follow Abdul's character in the sense of Helen, you know, he's a struggling artist. Of course, you know, Helen had her whole thesis and that thing going on that made her really want to investigate the whole CandyMan structure and really deep dive into that and that allure, and to where, you know, she's haunted and set up and all those things throughout the film. The exact same thing here was happening with Anthony. But unlike Helen, Anthony here was just tasteless as a character. He was nothing you wanted to follow, have sympathy for, really bear with him, you know, when he got into the depths of his transformation, mentally, physically, fear for him as a character, because he was so unlikable. There was nothing to like from the very start. You have him, you know, kind of feeling inadequate as a man, because you have the Teyonah Parris character playing Brianna, his girlfriend, who is, you know, well off. She runs, you know, an art gallery. She seems, you know, really dominant in the relationships he's able to provide, where he's a struggling artist and really struggling inward with having to appease these right critics. You know, they're not understanding our work, which, you know, ties in into, you know, white bad, black good. And we also use his art to, you know, call back to original things in the film. Like, it was for that, but it didn't work for me. And then the entire film, you have him carry these horrible traits, like being really egotistical, not really knowing how to control his emotions. Though he is, you know, once he reaches his peak of really going through that transformation, prior to that, we didn't identify and like his character. Like, the relationship seemed to be all about him, what he was trying to do, what he wanted to come across in his art, and everything else played the background. His girlfriend plays the background to that. Even his mother, who we see for 5 seconds in the film. Like, we wasted Vanessa for that? Our one true character to return from the first film. We got 5 minutes with her? Okay. But it's just, it wasn't good. I didn't care about him the way I cared about Helen. You know, his whole thing was, I need my art to resonate with everyone. I want my name in lights. I want my name in the paper. I want to be that artist. And I think that goes along with the CandyMan theme, as saying, you know, he was always that. That's why he wanted his name to ring out so much. But the way that it's done here, he's just so unlikable and just not interesting to follow. You find yourself really not caring. So once we get to the part where he really kind of descends into kind of madness and he's infected and it just turns really tragic, you don't really care like you want to. But on the flip side, we do a really good job with our Teyonah Parris character, as you know, the girlfriend, the very supportive, likable, sensible, no, I don't want no parts of it. I'm trying to live my life. Why are you even bringing that up? Like, I love it. I love that she was so aware, like, yep, nope, not doing that. I want no parts of it. She's very likable and great to follow, and you really care for her as a character and care about where she ends up, unlike our main Yahya character. But at the same time, we decide to throw in this story about her father. We see him, you know, off himself, and, you know, him be that artist kind of in the same vein of where Yahya's character is. And it's just kind of like a struggle for her, and, you know, life choices and life decisions, and what, you know, what kind of maybe drawed her to Anthony in the first place, and her really dealing with the inner struggles of what happened to her dad. We bring them up, we put them out, we have flashback scenes, we, you know, bring it up in a roundabout way with the brother, and then we don't deal with it. It's just there. As is most things. This movie took for granted us guessing so much. Like, we were just supposed to assume and connect dots of all kind of stuff here, because so many things seem incomplete. It feels like a couple of scenes were pulled from this movie. some shit went unfinished. It just seemed like an incomplete project. Like, I shouldn't have to play the fucking guessing game to figure out what's going on or care about what's going on. And then we have our Colman Domingo character, who does, I really hope I'm saying his name right, he does an amazing job as William, you know, our longtime resident of the, you know, Cabrini Green projects. We follow him from a young man being approached with the candy all the way up to, you know, him still kind of keeping the allure of who that CandyMan is and his presence and his story, trying to keep that alive, although we don't quite know why up until the end of the film. He did a great job here. His delivery, his storytelling, his character, it was really great. And we were following him. He was very interesting to follow, interesting to hear, and, you know, just see him reflect. And then they snatch it all back and turn him into a completely different character towards the end of the film for no fucking reason. It was so unwarranted, so unearned, just magically happened. Like, why? Absolutely why? That whole thing there pissed me off. Like, they wanted so bad for this movie to be woke and be a statement that we didn't even bother to try to make sure the movie made sense. There were so many routes that we could have went with the William character and why he was the way he was towards Anthony or the CandyMan allure and keeping that alive in the community. There were so many, like, we didn't get any POV shots of him, you know, maybe following Anthony and waiting, because, you know, it's all about Anthony returning, like it's his birthright and this is who you're supposed to be and I'm here to make sure you get there because me and C-Man, we have this type of connection. No, it just happened. It just happened. We didn't get him, you know, trying to be investigative towards Anthony, just being too, no, it just fucking happened. And that's why I feel like this didn't need to be a spiritual anything. This movie and the message that they were trying to have come across could have been its own individual movie without the CandyMan name attached to it at all. We never need that. Yes, it is a good basis, you know, with the CandyMan story and how he came to be and, you know, the white woman, you know, that whole thing and the scatter the ashes over the Cabrini Green at which he, you know, hunts the residents there. And we didn't need that. This movie should have been its own thing and been its own woke situation. Them trying to mix their message with the CandyMan allure that is just deep down a horror film. It did not work. This should have been a standalone movie. We could have had William, even if we didn't, we could have had William, you know, we never heard of Anthony McCoy's character having a father. He could have been his father and he would have known, you know, hey, this, nothing was making fucking sense. How? Y'all had so long to get this shit right to just fuck it up. Ugh. And then we get into this body horror attempt. Now, me, myself, Miss Hellraiser, Clive Barker, yet again herself, CandyMan himself, The Fly itself. I love some good body horror. Body horror done well, it does something to you. The body horror here did absolutely nothing for me besides make Anthony's character look completely idiotic. And it's just like, when he gonna go to the hospital? Why are we gonna wait for it to get all up above the neck area to even venture to the hospital? Like, it didn't do anything for me. It wanted so bad to be gross. Once he hit that black nail coming off, like, oh, it's just, oh, I'm dying inside. Like, I felt nothing. Getting into Anthony. Now, we have endless bodies piling up of, you know, white people, because, you know, we killing the white people here. And Anthony attached to pretty much all of them. We don't even bother to have one scene of, you know, police coming to investigate Anthony to see what's going on. Hey, your name, the essence of you, your last, you know, appearance. You were here at these events, at this woman's house, No, we don't even bother to put that in. They didn't give a fuck. So after we've traveled with Yahya's character in the same vein that we traveled with Helen in the beginning. We see him stung by a bee and go through his transformation and start to change, even though he seemed a little way before he got stung by that goddamn bee. We, encounter many white people, each one worse than the last. Like, I was just... Oh, the racism here was so heavy-handed that it's funny. And I kind of took it personal that it was kind of trying to play on our emotions with, the whole Black Lives Matter movement that popped off. When this film would have supposed to come out, this film would have been gobbled up by people feeling, really oppressed with everything going on. The whole George Floyd thing, Breonna Taylor. The Say My Name, that revolves around the CandyMan allure was more so placed here with the cries of the Black Lives Matter movement. And I don't think they went together here. I feel like this was supposed to grab people's attention and mix the two and have people really root for the Yahya character, the CandyMan, and, this is for the justice. I'm coming here, I'm kicking ass. Like, it kind of pissed me off. So that by the time we get to the ending, that made absolutely no sense at all. None. Came out of left field, out of nowhere, and it's supposed to be so intense. And we have, things conveniently happening to where, our main character just gets captured. They're just there. And, shit is just happening. And when we have that big climax at the end involving the police and that whole big thing, it just felt so unearned and just another moment to turn this into a political stance rather than just keep this as a horror movie, which is all it was ever meant to be. If you want it to be in the same vein of, the Fruitvale Stations, the Hate You Give movies, let's do that. Let's really do that and really have it make sense. Now, this could have had that same message if the writing would have been better and it would have came across the audience, and this could have been a damn good film, but it didn't, and it wasn't, and it sucked. So once we get to the very end, because believe me, child, I was sitting there so Tony Todd isn't here. When we get our only appearance from Mr. Tony Todd and we have that big speech of, tell everyone, what was that supposed to do? It ran with the rest of the theme in our film of, hey, if you're white and you're, fucking up shit for the blacks, say my name 5 times and I'm coming and I'm killing everyone, as long as they're white. Because we didn't touch a black person in this film, which I didn't understand, because we have a moment in the film where 2 teens, our younger Williams sisters, do the 5 times in the mirror thing, and he comes and kills them, and you see like a bonding moment happen to where he's just obsessed with him from that young age all the way up to the older man that we see here, who has that dramatic change at the end. Other than that, this was, we're killing the white folks. This film did absolutely nothing for me. There wasn't a lot here that I enjoyed. This film was quite mediocre with all the time spent on it, all the anticipation. There was no reason that it should have been. This film should have been its own thing. The CandyMan did not need to be attached, especially if we're going to bring, the Anthony McCoy and the Anne-Marie McCoy character back to kind of switch up the whole story of, what actually was happening with Helen, what the CandyMan actually stood for. But we wanted to make him something different here because we wanted to get with the time and cash in on, the Black Lives Matter, the police brutality, the injustice of these last few years that we've had so often. This wasn't the moment to do that. And if we had to poorly write a story to do that and kill all the white people in the movie to do that, we didn't need to do that. Well, you guys, that was my review for the CandyMan film. This was not, my usual review, as it just couldn't be here because I was mad disappointed. I was so disappointed at how poorly this film was executed and what they decided to opt for instead of just keeping this a horror. And believe me, I'm not saying that there is not a time and place for these issues to be put on the forefront, because we know that they are wrong and they are continuing to happen, whether we like it or not, for better or worse. It's just a never-ending cycle of injustice done to Black people in general. I just don't feel like this was it. I feel like it was unwarranted in this film, and it was unearned, and I feel like they thought the audience was stupid. But I'm not, and I hated it. But you guys comment and let me know what you thought about the film below. Me, myself, I had to really dig deep for things that I liked about this film, and if I have to do that, then child, I just don't like it. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.